Let's go Dolphins! Something unusual is happening behind the scenes with the Miami Dolphins right now. While the rest of the AFC East is making big signings and grabbing headlines, Miami may be quietly preparing a strategy that could completely change how competitive the team will be next season. And believe me, what comes next might surprise many people who have already dismissed the Dolphins. But before revealing the details, be sure to like this post if you still believe this team can surprise the league this season. And I want to see the true optimists in the comments. Right below, I believe in the Dolphins, in the end, because what I'm about to tell you might completely change your perspective on this offseason. Let's get straight into the news. Day 2 of NFL free agency slowed down a bit compared to the opening frenzy, but there were still major developments that directly affect Miami. The Dolphins themselves made a move at the kicker position by signing Zane Gonzalez, replacing Jason Sanders and Riley Patterson in that role. That decision alone already sparked discussion among fans, because special teams consistency is something Miami has been trying to stabilize for a while. But the bigger story might actually come from inside the division. The New England Patriots made a major splash by signing wide receiver Romeo due to a 4-year deal worth $68 million, potentially reaching $80 million with incentives. And here's the part that might sting Dolphins fans a little bit. Due was a player many people wanted Miami to pursue in free agency. He's not necessarily a superstar receiver or a consistent 1,000-yard producer, but he's widely viewed as a very solid wide receiver too in today's NFL. In the modern market, roughly $17 million per year for a veteran WR2 is actually considered pretty standard. Due showed strong chemistry with quarterback Malik Willis late in the 2025 season, especially during 2 games where he was targeted 9 times and caught 8 passes for 146 yards and a touchdown. That kind of efficiency is exactly what teams look for in a reliable second option in the passing game. And when you imagine a potential offense featuring Willis, Jaylen, Waddle, and Devon Achane, adding a receiver like Due could have made Miami's attack extremely dangerous. Instead, he ends up strengthening a division rival in New England. Now let's talk about the New York Jets. The Jets made several defensive moves recently, but the biggest headline was their decision to trade for quarterback Geno Smith from the Las Vegas Raiders. The Jets didn't want to risk Smith entering free agency, so they sent a 6th-round pick to acquire him along with a 7th-rounder in return. But interestingly, this might actually benefit Miami more than hurt them. Geno Smith struggled significantly last season and was tied for the league lead in interceptions with 17. And yes, that tied total also included former Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. There were even rumors at one point that Smith preferred Miami as a destination in free agency, which could have created a very different scenario if the Dolphins had not already signed Malik Willis. Instead, Miami secured Willis, and many analysts believe that decision came with far less financial risk due to how the contract is structured over the next few years. Meanwhile, another move that could have helped Miami slipped away. Offensive lineman Elgton Jenkins signed a 2-year, $24 million deal with the Cleveland Browns, including $20 million guaranteed. Jenkins would have been a strong option to reinforce Miami's offensive line, especially with his ability to play either guard spot. But ultimately, the price tag was simply too high for the Dolphins' current salary cap situation. And speaking of the cap, this is where things get really interesting. Right now, Miami is projected to be roughly $2.80 to $3 million over the salary cap and must become compliant before the new league year officially begins. That means a roster move is likely coming very soon. It could be a release, a contract restructure, or even the potential designation of Bradley Chubb as a post-June 1 cut to create future cap space. Something has to happen. And when you start connecting all the dots, Dolphins fans, the situation becomes even more intriguing. Because while everyone is focusing on the splash moves made by the Patriots and the Jets, the Miami Dolphins front office appears to be playing a very calculated game behind the scenes. Think about it for a moment. Miami already addressed the quarterback position by bringing in Malik Willis earlier in the offseason, and that decision completely changed the trajectory of what the Dolphins could do moving forward. Instead of scrambling for a veteran like Geno Smith or another risky option, the team locked in a player with upside and a contract structure that gives them flexibility over the next couple of seasons. That alone allowed the Dolphins to avoid a situation where they would be forced to overspend or panic in free agency. But the reality is that the roster still has several needs that must be addressed if Miami wants to seriously compete. After the first wave of free agency moves, the team's biggest priority has shifted dramatically. Edge rusher is now considered the number 1 need on the roster, followed by cornerback, offensive guard, safety, and then wide receiver depth. Even the tight end room may still need reinforcement despite the team bringing back Greg Dulcich on a 1-year deal worth $3.25 million. This is where some potential targets start to appear. One of the most interesting names available right now is edge rusher Azeez Ojulari. He's still only 25 years old and was once a very productive pass rusher early in his career after being drafted in the 2nd round out of Georgia. While his last couple seasons haven't been as strong, Miami could be looking at him as a low-risk, high-reward signing. If the Dolphins could bring him in on a short 1-year deal worth around $2 to $3 million, he could potentially give Miami 6 or 7 sacks playing opposite Chop Robinson. For a team searching for young and affordable pass rush help, that kind of gamble might make a lot of sense. Then there's the cornerback position. After the release of Nate Hobbs by Green Bay, there's already speculation that Miami could show interest. Hobbs struggled last season with the Packers, but he originally signed a 4-year, $48 million contract because the coaching staff believed he could fit well in Jeff Hafley's defensive system. Sometimes a change of environment can revive a player's career, and if Hobbs becomes available at a cheap price, the Dolphins might at least explore the possibility of bringing him in to strengthen the secondary. Another name to watch is Rasul Douglas. Douglas actually played well for Miami previously, and there is still some familiarity between him and members of the current coaching staff. Dolphins defensive backs coach Ryan Downard previously worked with Douglas in Green Bay, and another assistant coach had experience with him in Buffalo. Because of those connections, it wouldn't be surprising if Miami tried to bring him back on a one-year deal around $3 million if the market doesn't push his price higher. The offensive line is another area that cannot be ignored. Even though the team missed out on Elton Jenkins, there are still versatile options available such as Spencer Burford. Burford has experience playing in a Kyle Shanahan-style offensive system, which is very similar to the scheme Miami plans to run. He could provide depth at both guard positions or even compete for a starting role if the Dolphins decide not to address that spot early in the draft. And when you look at the wide receiver room, Miami might still add a low-cost option. One player being mentioned is Dyami Brown. He had flashes of production in Washington, including some big plays during their playoff run to the NFC Championship game. Later he signed with Jacksonville but never really found his role there. Because of that, Brown might now be available on a very cheap one-year deal. Miami is looking for outside receivers with size, and Brown could fill that WR3 or WR4 role while the team potentially drafts another receiver later in the draft. But all of these potential moves depend on one thing. The Dolphins must first create cap space. Right now the team is projected to be a few $1 million over the salary cap, meaning a roster move is almost guaranteed to happen before the new league year officially begins. That could mean a contract restructure, a veteran release, or a strategic financial adjustment that frees up enough money for Miami to continue building the roster. And that's where things get really interesting for Dolphins fans. Because if the front office clears cap space and then quietly adds 2 or 3 of these affordable players, an edge rusher like Ojulari, a veteran corner like Douglas, and maybe a depth receiver like Dyami Brown, Miami could suddenly fill multiple roster holes without spending huge amounts of money. Sometimes the smartest offseason moves are not the splashiest ones. What makes this moment even more intriguing for Miami Dolphins fans is the timing of everything happening around the team. Free agency always creates noise across the league, but sometimes the most important developments are not the ones making the biggest headlines. Sometimes the real story is what a team is preparing to do next. Right now, Miami finds itself in a very delicate situation. The team has already made a few strategic moves, including bringing in a new kicker with the addition of Zane Gonzalez, signaling that the front office is willing to make adjustments even in areas many fans weren't expecting. But that might only be the beginning. At the same time, division rivals are aggressively reshaping their rosters. The New England Patriots made a bold move by signing wide receiver Romeo due to a long-term contract, adding another weapon to their offense. For Dolphins fans, this one hurts a little because Due was a player many believe could have fit perfectly in Miami's offensive system. He may not be a superstar receiver, but he's widely viewed as a reliable number 2 option capable of producing big plays and helping stretch the field. Meanwhile, the New York Jets made a completely different type of move by trading for quarterback Geno Smith. That decision alone sparked a lot of conversation across the division. Some analysts believe it gives the Jets stability at quarterback, while others argue it could actually benefit Miami since Smith struggled last season and finished tied for the league lead in interceptions with 17. But here's where things get really interesting. Instead of reacting impulsively to these rival moves, the Dolphins appear to be taking a more calculated approach. The front office knows that several positions still need reinforcement, especially along the defensive